Yes, hey, 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 and welcome to another segment of the Saucy Marriage Weekend. I have an expert segment again in one of those areas where I'm just super excited because it could be a source of stress and strain and just frustration parenting, right? We're going to be talking about parenting. We're going to be talking about that in the midst of the pandemic. I'm super excited because I have Marsha McClendon here, founder and CEO of C Conversations. And I met her online and I just loved her passion and her enthusiasm, her relationship with her own children, and then how she connects with children. She keeps it real and she's all about the openness and the communication. So I'm here for it. I'm super excited to have you and to
Yay.
impart that to all of you there. So how are you doing? I hope you're doing well thus far. I hope you're just downloading all of the things that we have been putting out this weekend. And yes, Marsha, we've been connected for a while online, but I'm going to kick it to you in case there's anything you want to add.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Marsha McClendon, the founder of C Conversations. And our goal at C Conversations is really to create a space or an atmosphere of healthy communication between us and our children. So when they're younger, when we first get our babies and bring them home, and first, second, third, fourth, fifth birthdays, we're like, yay, this is awesome, it rocks. And then they hit puberty, or then they hit teenagers, or they become young adults. And we're like, help! Somebody's gonna get strangled here. And for whatever reason, our communication with them breaks down. They start to feel like we're the enemy, or they start to feel like we're always coming at them. And we really wanted to create a space where young people and their parents, or even younger kids, how can we build a foundation to where, as our children gets older, they still feel as if we are on their side. They still feel that they can trust us. We can still demonstrate that they can trust us and that we love them. And more or less, how can we be that parent that we wanted when we were 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 17, 19? So
Mhm.
just fostering good communication between us and our children, and making sure that we're impacting them in a positive way.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm here for all that. I don't have a teenager yet, but I've been a teenager.
We all have.
Yeah, I know how I was, and I feel like I was on the fairly, decent side of things, but still, but I have a 5-year-old and still applying what we're going to talk about to open communication with them. I'm open with my daughter and have worked to foster open communication with her since forever, since she was a baby, and even when she started to be able to verbalize, and now she's very vocal.
Ooh, fun
Yeah,
time.
yeah, you have girls, So that's my family dynamic. I'm married. We have one daughter together, and she is 5 years old, Sovereign. But tell us a little bit about your family dynamic before we get into the meat and potatoes.
Okay, well, once again, my name is Marsha McClendon. I've been married going on 6 years now. This is my second marriage. From my first marriage, I have 4 children. I have twin girls and 2 boys. And my husband was also previously married, and he had 3 boys. So now together we have 7 kids. And they're ranging from the age of 9 all the way through 22. So we have a variety of blend in our house, right? And we are a blended family, so
Mhm.
there's never a dull moment.
I
There's
imagine.
always some form of excitement. There's always something going on, and there's always tons of opportunities for us all to grow, right?
Yeah,
So that is the genesis of it. But the thing is, regardless of whatever our situations are, our family dynamics may look like, we face the same challenges. They're just amplified for different situations. For
absolutely.
instance, blended, and a blended home is a lot more amplified than it probably would be in a regular household.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and I think it's important for us to speak to that. And so as you're listening, and what's your family dynamic? Is it, you and your spouse have a few children in the home? Do you have some, blended family situation and maybe you brought kids and then you had kids together? And that's a dynamic in and
Uh,
of itself too, right? So I think
mhm.
it's important for us to settle into that space of where we are, but also recognizing that there's commonality in how
Yes,
we want to show up
yes,
for our children, right?
yes,
So I'm excited. So before we start talking about these solutions out here and these ways that we can do things, we got to speak to the challenges, right?
yes.
So, what do you feel are the biggest challenges for parents when they're trying to connect and communicate with their children?
I think the biggest challenge is communication.
Mhm.
And um trying to listen to understand, trying first to listen to understand and then to teach the lesson or then to give the instruction. Sometimes we feel challenged in our own home, in our own space. We feel like you're challenging our very existence and we get into defense mode, and
Mm.
that doesn't make for a good foundation for communication. So communication starts to break down before it's even started, just because we feel challenged, they feel challenged, we feel challenged, and then communication goes out the door. So the biggest thing is mirroring or demonstrating what you want. I
Mm.
want to be heard, so I'm going to listen to you. I want to be understood, so I'm going to try my best to understand.
Yeah.
With the understanding that sometimes we may not always agree, you know. And even though I want to understand, and even though I know that you have a position on this, ultimately, I am the ruling figure in the house. And I am your safe place, whether
Mhm.
you can relate to it in this present moment or not. I
Mm.
am your safe place. I am your biggest fan. And after disagreements and stuff, still being able to show that you love and support.
Mhm.
They're for the most part, they're gonna react as a child. They should. They might
Yeah.
have an attitude. They might, be upset, but you don't match that attitude, or you don't get
Mm.
that. You demonstrate that one consistency of communication is the thing that we have to work through, but our love and the value for our relationship is bigger than any issue that we may have. So whatever those issues are, they settle at I value you, you
Mhm.
value me, and family is more important than anything that we can face.
And that's beautiful because that's what we have to go back to and anchor ourselves in. Because adults, we're parents, but we're human and we get our own attitudes. My daughter is 5, and sometimes I forget. Like, wait, what? That feeling of being challenged. But I also had to think of like, where does that come from? Like, she's 5, and as her guide, as her teacher, as her mom, and her parent. How do I help her navigate this world? I'm not gonna go toe to toe with
Oh,
you
go
because you
with her.
frustrated me,
With
right?
her.
But we have those moments, right? And
Yes.
so, even for her voicing, so I'm speaking to personal experience and then, challenges, and feel free on me asking you, like, what's some of your challenges with your kids? But as you're hearing this, those of you who are attending, thinking on kind of what your specific challenges are. So for me, helping my daughter understand big emotions, right? And she get upset and then, she wants to stomp or like you said, get an attitude. And it's like, well, hold up, because I grew up and not in my house. But the reality is that that energy has to be released somehow. So how do I help her release that? But in the moment, it's challenging because it's not like a light switch goes off when we work on things, and so it's so continuous, and then I feel like I'm like repeating myself, or and then the frustration ensues. She's so smart, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes she uses my words not against me, but to check me in certain ways,
Right.
like, hey
Hmm.
mommy, she told me when I was said something, or like, hey mommy, that wasn't nice, that I don't like it when you do that. And in some household tradition, you grow up and it's like your parent might be like, I don't care what you don't like, but I have to make a different decision if I want a different relationship with my child. But navigating that with her can be a challenge for me. So I'm curious for you if you've had challenges with your children.
I think the big thing is making ourselves human to them. So I even though I am mommy, I
Mhm.
am only mommy because a few seconds turn into a minute, 60 seconds, 60 minutes turn into an hour, and then we have hours and weeks and days, and it just add up to a few more years that I'm here longer than you are.
Mhm.
But I am still human being.
Mhm.
I'm still human. I have some of the same feelings and emotions like you do. And we have to respect that for each other. I'm not perfect. I'm not gonna get everything right. However, we have to get that commonality of um, first and foremost, we have to understand that respect is not negotiable.
Mhm.
Respect is something that we have to, and that starts from 4 or 5.
Yeah.
If I'm telling you that I don't like when you pout, and the key thing about parenting is it's a long haul, it's a long journey.
Mhm.
You're not going to, not everything you're going to get immediate results on, but you have to be consistent. So it comes back to our basics of consistency, discipline, and being able to be checked just much as we want to check them, and
Mhm.
being able to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, or I didn't mean to
Right.
offend you. However, whatever the situation is.
Ooh, can
But
I jump in? Just because I don't wanna lose. I know you on a roll,
okay, go ahead.
but I think you said something important, and I don't wanna lose because I know you're saying more nuggets to pull it out for all of us, is that I can say for myself that I have apologized to my child. And
Yes.
that's not something, especially young, maybe as a young adult, but I can say like, "Oh, traditionally parents are apologizing to their children, right?" And you just said the same thing, that you can say, hey, I'm sorry I did that, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And that's part of making us as human instead of these subhuman beings
Right,
that lord over
right,
them.
right,
And
right.
how many of you can say that you have been in a space where you've been comfortable apologizing to your child? My child has definitely asked for that. I've been doing that for a while, and clearly you have too. And I think that was just an important thing to pull out from what you said, because sometimes we think of being from apologizing as something that makes us less of a quote unquote authority when it comes to our children. Like, I don't apologize to you even if you're in the wrong, you're not in a good
Right.
space. So I think that's really important to pull out, because some of you may be thinking like, that sounds crazy to apologize to your child.
So it doesn't take away from you at all. Actually, I believe that it fosters or provide opportunity for room for them to apologize to you, because they know, not, let's normalize apologizing in general.
Right.
Yeah. Let's normalize just being able to say, hey, I'm sorry.
Right.
And seeking opportunities where you can show them that they are flawed too,
Mhm.
not to point it out, but without them saying, I'm sorry, you let them know that I've forgiven you. I've forgiven
Mhm.
you for doing X, Y, and Z. Or I've forgiven you for yelling and shouting at mommy, even though I've explained that I don't like that. I don't shout at you, so I don't like it when you shout at me. And
Yeah.
it also brings to the point of we have to do our internal work as parents.
Absolutely.
There's work that we have to do on ourselves. The reason why we're constantly being challenged, or our ego and our pride is constantly being bruised, is because we haven't done some of the work that we have to do within ourselves. Every
Mhm.
question does not require us to take it personal.
Mhm.
Every attack, every time we hear something that we don't want to hear, we don't have to take it personal. And I think it's the
Mhm.
ultimate show of power when we can hear when we don't want to hear, disagree with it, and still move forward in love, still move forward in these are the facts. We live by the facts. In my house, we live by actions and consequences. I don't I can probably count how many times I've spared them from the consequences of their actions. But from a very early age, I wanted them to have the reality of I need to think about what I do before I do it, because the
Mm.
are coming down the pipeline. If they get suspension, or if they couldn't go to an event at school, I am not the parent to go plead for them to go. Now, if they didn't do anything wrong,
Right.
definitely.
Mama
But if
bear's coming. Yeah.
hands to it, and that was it, when you've asked to forgive and you've asked for a second choice and the person decide no, not this time, I have let them sit in that, because it's
Mm.
important for them to understand that you cannot live your life the way how you want to, with no repercussions, or
Absolutely.
with no actions, no consequences coming, from your actions. So with that being said, I've opened the the room for back and forth communication,
Mhm.
and there are consequences to that. If I'm talking to you and you want to start yelling, and I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to fuss at you back. I'm going to listen to what you have to say, but I'm also going to show you how yelling does not change what the facts are, and I am going to show you how actually yelling make things worse. you know
Mhm.
you get a negative outcome every single time.
Yeah.
So you cannot try to intimidate me as much as I will never try to intimidate you.
Mm.
So it's that going back and forth, but most importantly is learning who you are and knowing that regardless of whatever your children say, you are the authority. You don't have to
Mhm.
prove it every time. You don't have to
That's
prove it.
real.
Yeah,
You
you
don't
don't have
have
to
to
pull up the
prove
big guy.
it.
I said it.
Yeah. You
No,
just are. Yeah.
it just is what it is, and I've
Yeah.
never made it as if certain things were negotiable. And because I value their voice and because I want to strengthen and empower their voice, I've established clear markers of what is negotiable and what isn't. Even when I meet with parents and we have conversations with their teenagers or their adolescent kids, when we get started on the process, I explain what is negotiable and what isn't. So certain
Mm.
things are a hard no, and certain things I'm open to hear what you have to say. I'm open to see things a different way. But just in life, certain things are negotiables and certain things are non-negotiables.
Right.
So when I have certain conversations, I normally, especially if I know it's going to be a challenging one for them to deal with, I always lead off with saying, now, I'm going to say this and it's not negotiable. You are not going to
Y-
that event. It's just not
Yeah.
how. And
Yeah.
I give them room to deal with it because I know that even as adults, we get disappointed and we
Yes.
act out, we get disappointed. So when they
Yeah.
get disappointed, I let them know where is the space for that acting out.
Mhm.
If you
Yeah.
get upset, you can go to your personal room. You can cry in there, you can be frustrated. If you want to talk some more about it, we can talk now or we can talk later. And if I see that you're not in a frame of mind where we can talk now, I will overrule and say later. We'll talk
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
But I respect the fact that they may have internal feelings that they need to deal with. And we go back and analyze those feelings too. Not in a sit down type of way, sit down, come here, let's analyze how you did, but more over dinner or more over coffee,
Yeah.
or over a TV show. Well, you know what?
Mm.
Actually, what happened earlier today? How did you think you did with that? I didn't like your response. And could it be me, the reason why I didn't like it, or was it you, the reason why?
Mhm.
And we try to analyze things, and life teaches us in different ways. We learn from movies, we learn from conversations, we learn from stuff at the store, we learn from
Mhm.
just driving and riding in a car, we learn from music, I see every opportunity as an opportunity to teach them something
Yeah.
every day. My mind is constantly, and I don't know if it's because I have a passion for it, but I'm constantly working stuff out, and
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to make myself vulnerable. There are times
Yes.
when they don't say anything, and I will bring it up to them, and I will say, you know what? I think that I handled that situation the wrong way. I got upset and I yelled, but going forward, I'm not going to do it. I don't always wait for them to point it out, because even though they don't point it out, they know when you've acted like you
Mhm.
shouldn't have. So whether it's at the store, whether it's me and my husband, maybe we got a little bit too excited in front of the kids. I always come back and say, you know what, I shouldn't have handled it that way next time. Or sometimes I even ask them, how do you think I should have handled it?
Mm.
And they
Ooh.
give me their feedback and
Yeah.
and how they feel about it. And if it's good, I listen,
Yeah.
because it's important for me to let them know that I value what they have to say, and
Mhm.
them in turn value what I have to say, because it's
Mhm.
not someone that's always telling me. We have to help each other. It's someone that I help, and it's someone that helps me. So I
Ooh.
get to buy into this whole thing of, we're on this journey together. Like, hey,
Mhm.
we're on this parenting journey together. I don't know it all, but when you see mommy going wrong, you pull me back in. Don't
Mhm.
let me go over the edge, because I would never let you go over the edge. So when
Mhm.
I'm pulling you in, It may not always be comfortable, but I'm saving you from the edge. And when you're pulling me in, it may not always be comfortable, but you're saving me from the edge. And together we're gonna stay on this path. We're gonna learn together, we're gonna grow together. There's gonna be hard times, sad times, fun times, times that we don't like each other. But ultimately, we love each other and we do what is right. So, oh my
Ooh, I just feel like there needs to be a moment of silence
God.
to let all of that really marinate. You're probably gonna have to go back, rewind, make a note for yourself because there was so much that you said in that around really personal responsibility, around being able to be vulnerable with our children, around letting them know that they're valued, that if we want to be valued and we want to be heard, then we have to listen and we have to value. I do the same thing
Yeah.
with my couples, right? And so these were probably children who weren't, myself included, who weren't really taught how to navigate communication, period. And then we get into a marital relationship and we have the same you know hiccups and issues around it, and we also impart that into our children. So the
Yeah.
same realm of communication that you're talking about, I'm here for it, married to it, love it, because it's also, there's a lot of parallels to what you need to do as parents and as spouses. So for some of you may be parenting your children a certain way and you're not on the same page about that, or you're having issues around that. You're going to need to have a conversation where you both feel heard, put everything on the table, and then decide what it is that you want. Like, well, how do you really want to show up as a parent with your kids? Some of you may need to check the ego and the pride. What is it
Yeah.
that you want to do, and put that on the table to have a productive conversation, not a match on this is what we need to do and why, and this is why I'm right and all of that, because those same issues are going to ensue, right? So some of you may feel like, I feel that way, but my spouse doesn't quite feel that way. Then you need to have a conversation where
You
you're
need to have a
listening.
conversation together. And
Absolutely.
it's important to start with the end in sight and then work your way back. So
Hmm.
I don't know how many people make yearly goals or agendas or plans and stuff that they want to accomplish during the year. But once you start with asking yourself, what kind of relationship do I want to have? These
Right.
are things we have to be intentional about. The home that I grew up in, there wasn't any intention to parenting. It was just like, okay, I'm your mom, I'm your dad, and this is just how the way it is. And that's, I believe that they did the best that they could with what they had, right?
Right.
But now we have to be, we're living in a time with smarter children. They're more exposed to so much more. And
Hmm.
so now we have to see this as, I'm running a house, but I'm running a business. I'm running something that's way more than me, and we have to have a plan. So there has to be strategy. Ask yourself, what kind of parent do I want? I've asked my children, what kind of parent do you want? So,
Right.
what is your expectations of me? And we've exchanged expectations, what I expect of you, what you expect of me. And don't be challenged or scared about them making expectations, because that actually works in your favor, because
Hmm.
now you can hold them to the standard that you want them to be held to, and you know what they're expecting of you. Of
Right.
course, you're going to have that conversation whether expectations are realistic or not,
Right.
but you set a standard, and you're able to work back from them. So when things are going crazy or things seem to be taking a different path, you can always come together and come back to, is this going to take us to the destination that we want to go? And if
Hmm.
it's not going to take us to the destination, we want to do the hard work.
Hmm.
And I always try to create the atmosphere of, don't be afraid to do the hard work.
Hmm.
Don't and and that came from, not only from working on me, but it came from working with them in projects around the house.
Hmm.
you know don't let's take the easy way out. Don't let's just sweep the stuff under the chair. Don't let's just store our stuff in the closet. Let's do the hard work. Let's do the hard work. And it's
Hmm.
building in them from small. When you're working on stuff with them, you tell them, no, let's not take the easy way out. Let's do the hard work. Or what is the most challenging route? Let's take that. We'll feel more rewarded when we go on
Mhm.
trips, when we go hiking and stuff like that. We don't always take the shortcut or the easy path, because we understand that in the longer route, we're building a muscle, we're building something that's going
Mm.
to come in the long run. And when things get hard, we've already built the muscle of not giving up and taking the easy way out. So we can have the hard conversation. We can go through the hard thing and still be okay.
Ooh, yes. Oh, I
Yep.
got goosebumps. But and I love that. And it's the same thing when you were saying sweep it under. I love a good analogy. But sweep things under the rug, right? Or under the chair. We don't want to do that in our adult relationships, in your marriages. You want to be in a space where you can actually do the work, raise the awareness
Mhm.
and the consciousness for the purpose of your growth to come out on
Yeah.
the other side, right? And so before I switch gears and talk about, because you kind of segued us in there a little bit around the time that we're in now and how we support our kids. I want to know, since we've been talking about these challenges, what's one challenge, it might be with your kids in general or one of your children, your teenagers, that you really sticks out for you that you were able to overcome using what around parenthood.
I would say there's been a
You're like,
few,
which
but
one, girl? Which
there's been a few. I have one really good one. I'm gonna try to share it. If not, I'm gonna share two. But the first one was my eldest son. He went and he joined the military, and
Mm,
he's in the Navy, and he's stationed in Japan. And this was his first time being away from home. This was his first time being living out of the house, being able to
mm,
make his own choices and do his own things and stuff like that. And we would FaceTime, we would Skype, we would talk about what I assumed was everything. I mean, generally, he's the one child that will tell me any and everything. You
mm.
know, he is the one child I'm like, no, I don't want to hear it.
Too much.
So we were talking one day, and he had a tattoo on his arm from here to here,
Yeah,
and
the military.
long shirt. He had a long shirt, and we were talking, and as he got more comfortable, he went like this to pull the sleeves up. And I saw the tattoo on his arm. And I didn't say anything immediately. We had our conversation, we had a good time, and everything was fine. And a couple days later, I waited, for him to come to me. And he came to me. He ended up telling me, he was like, I don't know if you saw the tattoo on my arm, but I did get a tattoo, and I'm planning on getting a few more. And
Mm,
not only did I have to deal with the fact that as soon as you leave my house, you're now tatted up, but you really want to go with this, right?
yeah.
And so I told him, I said, I don't want you to get any tattoos. And being the way that I raised them, of course, he goes, what are your reasons?
See? It comes back full circle.
Full circle.
Yeah.
And I felt challenged in that statement. And I
Yeah.
said to him, um, I don't like it. Which was not necessarily the truth, because I do like tattoos on a man.
Oh,
My
okay.
husband, tattoos. But I didn't want you to have tattoos. And he says to me, Mom, why? I said, I don't know, because I just I didn't want you to have no tattoos. I couldn't come up with a good reason why.
Yeah.
I said, and then, in this society and time that we're living, you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. You don't want to disqualify yourself from a lot of things. I said, I got a tattoo, but I got a tattoo when I was well into my career, and stuff was a lot stable. I had already established myself. I said, but you're now starting off. And my fear is that you're putting yourself at a disadvantage getting all
Mm,
the tattoos. You're going to be stereotyped. You already have a lot of stereotypes that you have to deal with as a Black young man.
mm,
And besides that, I don't want my friends to look at you and be like, oh, as soon as he left home, this, and this.
mhm.
And he went through each of my
I
concerns.
bet he did.
And he said, Mom, first of all, we're living in a different time.
Mm,
Doctors, nurses, lawyers all have tattoos. We wear stuff sleeves to cover our tattoos. You'll never know the person that you're going at, the doctor that you're speaking to is tattooed up, because they always wear long sleeve stuff. And he was like, society and everything is changing. The stigma around tattoos are not necessarily the same. If the military have relaxed their rules regarding tattoos, it's perfectly okay. And then he said to me, and the issue with your friends, Mom, you will have to deal with that one. And he said, remember how you always told us that as long as we're being honest with ourselves and as long as we're being honest and open with our family, that is okay. We can get through it. He said, your friends may not like it. They may judge. They may say whatever they want to say. But he says, but you have to find the peace in that. And I
Yeah.
can't own it. And that was a big one for me. And in that, I had to also ask myself about things that he was posting on online. He was on Facebook and he was posting going out with his friends and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then I had to go back to the what kind of parent do I want to be?
Mhm.
So I had to do the hard internal work. Is this where we're at now, Marsha? Are we
Yeah.
becoming the parent that we didn't want to be?
Right.
And so I had to recalibrate and say to myself, the rule or the motto of our family is that we value relationship over issues. Is that really true to you? You
Mm.
know? And now I'm like, I really don't care who friends him, who does whatever. I share his stuff. I'm happy. This is him. This is where he is in his process. This is not the end of the road. And even if it is, I love my child, and that's just the
Yeah.
bottom line, you know.
Yeah.
And so I had to really deal with those things in myself, being that I came from the Caribbean, and parents are very hard and crucial on their kids, you know,
Yeah.
and certain things you just don't do. And if your kids do it, you wasn't a good parent. And I had to
Mm.
separate that. I had to separate his choices, his beliefs, the way that he wants to live his life. I had to separate that from my parenting skills. Just
Yeah.
because my child has made decisions that I'm not favorable of doesn't mean I was a horrible mom. Doesn't mean that I didn't do a good job. It just means that they're exercising their rights to choice, you know.
Right.
And ultimately, that is okay. But I don't have to feel defensive, or I don't have to take a personal attack on myself and say you didn't do a good job. You
Yeah.
did a great job.
I
And
mean
some
that
what it comes back to as parents, we get
yeah.
most offended because of what people will say, and we
Mhm.
don't support our kids because of what people will say, you
Right.
know, instead of choosing to, I'm going to choose to support. And once I've made my valid points to you, if you've thought it through, then I support you, you know.
Yeah. And I would say that that's a when I'm listening to this, it's like a proud mama moment that you've raised him to not only listen to what his mom has to say and say, "Look, whatever, he's like he listened to what you had to say." And I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, she hasn't come up with a good reason yet, and he can call you on that respectfully and really even recognize that what other people say is not on him and be able to articulate that to you. That's huge. You know what I mean? And how old's your son? Is he
He's 21 now.
He's 21, and to be in that space with you, and and he made valid points, and it reminded me of why my parents didn't want me to get a nose ring. They were like the same thing, like, "Oh, you're not going to be able to get a job. You have a ring on your face." Like,
Yeah.
and it's something that I want to do for self-expression. And I think the other piece that is important to glean from that and to kind of put in under the umbrellas of acceptance, right? That we come to a space that our children are not us, and that we have to accept them for who they are and who they're becoming. And we need to do the same thing in our marriages, right? In terms of accepting who we are and who our spouse is, because we didn't marry
Mhm.
ourselves, but with our children, letting them express and to be who they are and still guiding them, and he still listens to you, I think is really important even from a young age. My daughter doesn't necessarily express how I do, and she's 5, but there's autonomy in that because I never want to squash her voice as a girl, as a female, as a Black girl growing up feeling like you don't have a voice or that voice is stereotyped. I'm glad you just brought that up about how we're already stereotyped and how we have to separate our voice from anybody
Yeah.
else's voice, our parents, society, and
Mhm.
allow our children to have that voice. I think is so, so key. So I love all of that in that story. I know y'all gonna have some comments on that one right there, but I wanted to segue since you were talking about supporting them. when it comes to the space that we're in now, a lot of parents, their children are home, even their young adult children, right? And so college age children have come home to nest,
Yeah.
including young children that may have already been home. They're not socializing like they're used to. They don't have the same outlets to go on field trips and do things outside of the house. And so, how do parents who may be at their wits' end, because they're not used to that either, how do they support their children in that kind of environment, knowing that they're going through things too as adults and their kids are going through things?
Prioritize, you know, what is now important is
Mhm.
no different to, in a marriage when you find yourself in a financial constraint. You go to your budget and you look like, what can we live without? You know,
Yeah.
what is important? What can we give up and be okay with? We can give up cable, we can give up, there's certain negotiables, right? So it's coming back, or and it may not be coming back, it may be for the first time coming to the table and saying, as a family, what is important to us.
Mhm.
Being heard is important, being seen, being recognized, being appreciated and respected, and how can we find a way as together as um, as a family to be heard, be seen, to love and respect each other, and to still accomplish our goals. So it's making, being intentional,
Mhm.
being strategic, having honest conversations, listening, and just to circle back a little bit about what I was talking to about my son, he was able to say something to me that I didn't necessarily want to hear,
Mhm.
because I have heard stuff from him that he knew that I didn't necessarily want to hear. And so it's been vice versa. So we've demonstrated in our relationship that we can have a hard, uncomfortable conversation and be okay. Our relationship can go through certain things and be okay. Our relationship is not a fragile egg. It's not going to
Mm.
first hint of something happening. And it comes back to that now in this society, in this time, that the pandemic is not going to kill our relationship. Our
Mm.
relationship is stronger than that, right? So, whatever it is you're feeling, you are okay to express it. You are okay to say it. In expression, there's certain things that we cannot do without. And one of
Mm.
those things is respect. We have to respect each other as we express our feelings, as we express our pain, and as we express our process or whatever it is that we're going through. So coming together and saying, these are the things that bothers me, these are the things that I miss, or even having one-on-one conversations. I find that we have a good time as a family. We laugh, we have fun, we have a good time as a family. But a lot of our really, really good times is our one-on-one times.
Mm.
As a mom or as a dad, make a priority to spend one-on-one time with your child.
Mhm.
Whether they're a teenager, a small child, or whatever, have that one-on-one time. And in that one-on-one time, be intentional about listening. Tell me, how was your day? Tell me, how are things affecting you? No, really, be intentional. Let's go to the store. Ride with me to the store to pick up something. And on that ride, turn the music off, you
Mhm.
know, and really ask her, how you been doing?
Mhm.
You know, let me tell you how I've been doing.
Yes.
I miss my friends. I feel like I want to, and be authentic. Don't just
Mhm.
tell them what you think they want to hear. Tell them what you miss. Tell them what's affecting you, and be honest, so they can say, wow, I didn't know that. Well,
Mhm.
actually, you know what's affecting me? And when you hear it, just be prepared to hear anything
Yeah. Yeah.
in a non judgmental form. I miss
Yeah.
my, well, who is this friend? What's your friend name? It might be a friend that they probably thought was a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They may not want to say that to you, but value the things that they value. Be a soundboard, listen to them, engage. We have to engage each other more. We
Yeah.
have to spend time truly understanding each other, and with intention. We have cell phones, we have social media, we have TVs, we have Hulu, we have so much that is just always vying for our attention.
Mhm.
So we have to now be so intentional about what we spend our time with. And in this pandemic, even though we have to distance ourselves from people, we can still connect in distancing. So when we're
Mhm.
home, let's value our home time. Let's have
Mhm.
make new traditions with your family. Every Sunday we have dinner, or every Friday night we'll do movie Friday, or every Saturday we'll do tacos, or Tuesdays. People say Taco Tuesdays. Or make it intention one day out of the week to
Yeah.
do something together as a family. Some of the other things we can do is we have no cell zones. There's certain zones in our house that is no cell. And
Mhm.
sometimes mommy may not like it. Sometimes I want to be like, oh, 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 and they'll check me on it. And I have to come back. Like our
Yeah.
car, a lot of times our car rides are no cell phone zone. We get in the car, we make fun, we joke, we look at other cars, we talk about stuff. Um, I just pop up random conversations. I have a notes thing in my notepad where I just put things in that I hear from the news, that I hear from in conversations,
Mm.
that I might overhear from them. And when we get in the car and we start talking, I bring up, how do you guys feel about the Black Lives movement? How do
Yeah.
you feel or about that? And we start talking
Mm.
on this good dialogue. And when we get in, sometimes we
Yeah.
come to the driveway and we're still in the car talking. And then that conversation comes back in the house. But it's going to cost for us doing the work within ourselves, because
Right.
now we have to disengage from our phones. And what we don't understand is, I was listening to a podcast and the girl was saying, we were talking about sleep and sleep being interrupted, and which is what I find with my young ones, that they're going to bed at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, even way after I've slept. So we started talking about a mental toll that just screams being on your phone takes. And I've practiced this thing where 2 hours before I go to bed, I just putting my phone away, not looking at any screen. And I was surprised that my sleep was so much more better. So I
Mm.
the journey for me. 30 minutes before we go to sleep, put it away. Then I'm going to increase it to an hour before we go to sleep. Let's put it away. But I replace it with something. At the end of the evening, we touch base with each other. How was your
Yeah.
day? Maybe we do the dishes and we all talk and stuff. But it's so much intention. So in this time,
Mhm.
come back together, or if you haven't done it before, come together, find out what is important to you and your family. If you're married, well, you should be, because this is a saucy marriage. Come together as
Yeah.
husband and wife, and
Yeah.
really ask yourself, what do we want to accomplish in this time? We may never have a time where, again, for as long as we live, where the country is completely shut down. How
Right.
can we be intentional about what we do in this time? Come together, make a plan, meet with your children, share that plan, and then find ways how you can plug in and connect with them specifically. Plan
Mhm.
things that does not involve phone and other people. Plan trips. It doesn't have to be expensive. Go for a bike ride. If you don't have a bike, go for a walk together as a
Mhm.
family. That
Mhm.
can do so much. Leave the phones at home. If something happens, an emergency, guess what? You're gonna do what people did before cell phones and emergencies.
Hello.
Gonna run down the road and call someone, or something is gonna happen. It's a walk, okay? It'll
Yeah.
be fine. So
Yeah.
you do walk, you take a break from social media. And then one thing that's so big in our community that we don't really embrace is therapy. If your child is having difficulty and they need therapy, it is okay.
Yeah.
It may be unfamiliar to you, but it's okay. Embrace that. So we go to the doctor, when we stump our toe, break a nail, get a fever, something is not going okay. We have to
Mhm.
see mental therapy as the same. If I'm not feeling mentally okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and we've had conversations, we've talked about it, I've tried to understand, I've tried to lighten your load, whatever I can do, then, and these things are still not working, maybe we need to go consult somebody that actually has the answers, that have the cure, for
Right.
these. So seeking counseling or therapy, whatever that may be, that is perfectly okay. And
Absolutely.
seeing where you can ease the burden. Like some nights I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to do your homework tonight. We get up a little bit early in the morning.
Mhm.
It's not the end of the world. Where can you
Right.
need them?
Right.
I'll do your dishes for you tonight. It's
Right.
okay. And when
Right.
we can empathize with our children, it makes it easier for them to empathize with us.
Yeah.
You it's
It's cyclical.
reciprocal.
Absolutely.
Exactly. We have
Absolutely.
to. And sometimes as parents, we keep thinking that we can tell them don't, or do, and we miss the mark. The first thing we
Mhm.
want to say is, "How was your school? What are your grades looking like?" Well, have you paused and asked me how am I doing? Because I
Mhm.
do have feelings. I go through things. You
Right.
know. So it's retraining ourselves to actually engage and not just pass by each other.
Absolutely. Because then what you're doing in that conversation is you're letting your child know what then is the most important to you, or at least that's what they're going to internalize, right? Of, oh, if you just ask me about my grades, I was that child. And we had talks with I had talks in my family as well. And we had conversation, but somehow for me, I still felt like a lot of my identity was wrapped up in how well I did in school, right? There was this pride of being an A student. And, and some point in my life, that didn't even matter. Like nobody asked me for my transcript
Yes.
or my grades. But at the time, that's where I felt like, I got the accolades. And that's where I felt like it was really important for me to excel in those ways. And so even with the best intentions, sometimes we create a messaging that is not comfortable for our children. So if you say it like that, then, oh, that's the priority. But if you come with it in a sense of, let me share about your day, or how are you doing? Like, we can talk about your grades later. Then you're letting them know that, like you said, we're putting you first. We're putting your voice and your feelings first, which is really, really important. So
Yeah,
I'm
because
loving all of this.
not to cut you off, but so
Mm-mm.
much we were taught that the way how you gauge if you're doing a good job at being a parent is your child making A's in school.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
we lean into that, and it's not like, are you doing good in school? If you're doing good in school, you're okay. And even though we can use that to see whether or not where our children are they okay, are they not okay based on their grades, or the grades slipping or whatever, it should be to really make sure that they're okay, and not that
Yeah.
we're just trying to make sure that we're measuring up as a parent, because our children are doing okay. It's placing more value on who they are as individuals,
Yeah.
and that opens
Mm.
the door for everything else, because
Yeah.
you might realize that, like, at one point, my daughter, she had an issue with the teacher, but so because she had an issue with the teacher, it was hard for her to connect. And I try not to step in at first. I try to let them resolve stuff. So I said, okay, you document this, you send a nice email to the teacher, make sure that you let her know that you respect her work, you respect her classroom, however you would like to address a few things, so that you can excel in the work that she's taking time to do. And I always try to tell them, seek first to be understood. Your teacher is there, she's teaching several students. It's hard, it's not easy. So I don't want you to write to her like what she's doing is easy.
Mm.
Let's value her first, let her know what our issues are. And then back in that with, you really look forward to talking to her about this because you value her opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so teaching her how to handle that situation. But I never would have known that if I wasn't asking other things like, what's your grade? Like, tell me. I always ask about your friends, who they are. Oh, really? That's what their parents said? That's what their mom said? Wow. And we chuckle about it, even though some things I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
My intention is always to keep that line of communication open.
Right.
And with some kids, I will say that it is harder. And if it's something that you're now trying to do, it's going to take a little bit more work. But as you practice and you exercise that muscle, it's going to become easier. They have walls that can be broken down too. So
Mm-hmm.
you just keep hitting at it. You just keep hitting at it, and you're going to break through. And it's going
Yeah.
to be surprising to you when you do.
Yeah. You create the environment for all of this to happen, for the open communication. And these are the ways, what you're talking about is the ways that we create the environment. So
Yeah.
it's not that things are going to happen because we snapped our fingers, or you implement this and your kid maybe is still a little withdrawn. It's a continuous thing. Like you said, it's a journey. And so continue to create the environment, because the
Mhm.
alternative will most likely have the effect where you're not as connected with your children, right? And so I want to speak to one other dynamic that I know that folks don't necessarily speak to, but it's really important. And I love to hear what you have to say before we get to how to stay connected with you, because you were just dropping the golden nuggets of life. I know y'all know. So you mentioned subtly about kind of, you have 7 children. I have one. So this isn't necessarily something that I'm dealing with personally, but I've dealt with it as a sibling, is that your children are different, right? And that also means that while there's some commonality, a lot of times you also approach your children differently because they're different. And that can cause dissonance with the kids that spills over into the parents. Well, why did so and so get this? Or why did so and so happen there? As a parent, you're like, well, because they are sensitive to X, Y, and Z. So I have to have a different conversation with them. And, we know this in our head why we approach it differently. But when the kids see the difference, they can discern and internalize other reasons for that. So how do you navigate when your kids are your different children and you have to approach them differently? What's up there?
Okay, so first of all, comparison is doesn't get you far in my household. When you lead off with that comparison foot, that's the
Right.
wrong foot to pivot on. So it comes back to, I teach them this. What is your end game? What is your end result? If you want mommy to buy you something, or if you want her to address a certain concern, what is going to get you that? Comparison isn't going to get you there. When you compare yourself to other people, you're basically saying you and that person is the exact same thing. You're
Mm.
not the exact same person. I've taught you that you're an individual. I've taught you that there's no one else on earth like you. So that means I cannot treat you like you or everybody else. I
Mm.
have to treat you that way. And then we're a collective body. You know what I'm saying? You're the arm, you're the leg, you're the head, you're the foot. Would I put shoes on the arm? Do you want to walk around here with shoes sticking out? You have your value, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And so is the next person. And when that person hurts, or if that person is struggling in an area, it's our job collectively, not just individually, to support, to help. Because if that person hurts, our shield is down. So
Yeah.
I like to say in this house that we're an army. And we have to support each other. We have to keep our shields up. And
Mhm.
if one person is sleeping, we have to make sure that the other person is doing okay. We have to make sure that that person has what they need so that they can function, because if they hurt indirectly or indirectly, sooner or later it's going to come down to, so it's teaching the whole thing of, if one person have a concern in one area, it's a problem for all of us, right? you
Right.
know what I mean? So
Right.
that's the thing. The second thing is treating each other, or treating different people special, should be done, because
Mm.
are special, and let's celebrate that. If that person got some ice cream today and there wasn't enough for you to get, let's celebrate the fact that they did get it, because one day you're going to be the one to find the last scoop of ice cream in the can. You can be like, yay. You're not going to want us to fight over it. You're going to want
Right.
us to celebrate, or you're going to want us to be happy about it. So it's recognizing that differences will happen. If you go to
Mhm.
school, you're not the same.
Mhm.
If you go to church, you're not the same. You go to the mall, to the store, there's no way that you are the same, and you should not expect to be treated the same. The issue
Mm.
comes about with dishes. This person did the dishes, or this person didn't do it, and when this person do it, they don't empty the dishwasher. And when that person, so let me ask you this: if that person doesn't empty the dishwasher, and you have to empty the dishwasher, who is developing the muscle?
Mm.
Who is developing the muscle to be greater?
Mm.
Yeah, so it's important that we are able to treat each other differently. It's important that we don't expect the same measure of treatment from other people, and we don't give the same measure of treatment, because you're different, because you were made and created different. Difference is inevitable.
Yeah.
Whether you're at work, at school, wherever you go, there are going to be differences. And if you
Yeah.
only seek or look at where you're not being treated the same as everyone else, you're going to also miss out where you are not being treated the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
you know because there's things that's special to you. There's times that you get favored. There's times that you get treated differently, and you enjoy and you love those times. And we have to know that the same things that we want for ourselves, we have to also want for other people.
Right.
you know and it's I don't know how this is going to sound, but for me, I always tell them it's a weak person that compares themselves to someone else when that person is in a better, it seems to be being favored or preferred over
Right.
us. You know what I'm saying? That's a sign of weakness. That's a
Mhm.
sign of, you don't always have to be the center of attention. It
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be. And intentionally, I would do things for one child and not the other, just to gauge their response,
Mm.
because there's a little bit of greed in that. There's a little bit of covetousness in that.
Mhm.
There's some things on the inside of you, my child, that you may now have to do the work, the
And deal
hard work.
with.
and
Absolutely.
deal with,
Yeah.
because if you pick up this victim mentality, well, oh, this is happening for them and not for me. First of all, we know that whatever we say, whatever we expect, that is what comes to us. And if we
Mhm.
continue feeling like we're the victim, we're always going to be the victim. But if we feel like good things are coming our way, if we feel like this is this person's time, but my time is coming around too. And if you do a good job of celebrating everyone and frowning upon, if you make it a point to celebrate everyone and frown upon selfishness,
Mhm.
then it really drives home that selfishness isn't valued or appreciated here.
Yeah.
And then I make times for them to support and love on each other individual. Sometimes I might be at a store and say, oh, there goes some M&Ms. This person like M&Ms. Maybe you can get it for them. And
Yeah.
they'll bring home and say, oh, I thought about you while I'm at the store. And here you go. That might be the only person that got M&Ms that day, but that is perfectly okay because God placed that person on your mind, not
Yeah.
everyone else. You don't know what they're going through. So I really try to make it important that comparison from day one, comparison is not a good look. Like we don't do
Ab-
that.
Absolutely. And we need to know that as adults as well. I talk about this in terms of when we compare ourselves to other couples, this couple's doing X, Y, and Z, even when it's your grandfather and grandmother or your mother and father, because you have your
Yes.
own relationship and what
Yeah.
works for them doesn't necessarily work for you. Doesn't mean you can't listen, but you have to kind of stand in your own space. And you were talking about what's in that. I think it really also helps us navigate insecurity. We all have
Yes.
insecurities, but how do we
Hmm.
navigate those insecurities?
Right.
How do we use that? Do we use it in a
Hmm.
way that is vicious or mean or confronting, or do we use it to grow and to make ourselves better? Because we all have insecurities, adults
We all
included.
have, and we
Yeah.
we we have to point them out, and we
Yeah.
have to do the work, and we have to know that there's certain characters and certain character flaws or blemishes that we have in ourselves that is not going to get us where we ultimately want to go. And we have
Absolutely.
to be honest with ourselves and pinpoint it. Why am I feeling jealous? Because it's not about me this time. Or why am I feeling some kind of way because X, Y, and Z? So it's helping them to identify that too. Well, I don't know. Why do you feel, or why do we even need to talk about the fact that that person has something that you don't have? Like,
Mhm.
let me bring this back home to you. How many things do you have that that person doesn't have? And you know what? That person is actually happy for you. They don't count your blessings,
Right.
and it's bringing it back in. And because, like you said, if we don't deal with certain things right now, it magnifies. And as
Mhm.
we grow,
Mhm.
the Karens of this world at some point, they were little bullies, and I
Mhm.
don't, I mean it in no negative way.
Mhm.
But whatever we don't address grows. It doesn't go anyplace. It
Yeah.
grows. It
Yeah.
grows. It grows, and then it raises its head at an ugly time.
Absolutely.
And you don't want that turning up in your marriage. Is
Right.
this and then I come back to again? I always say, is this the type of young woman you want to be? Because we're on a journey. The woman that I want to be and the woman that I am now is the process of me getting there, right?
Mhm.
And what can I take on that journey with me? And what, regardless of how it may soothe my little pride, oh, woe is me, is it going to take me to where I ultimately want to be? I have
Mhm.
to separate from it. you
Yeah.
know, it's not going to make me the best me. I want to be a person that's happy. And I think if your children don't, I'm going to say, if your children don't see you comparing, that gene is going to die. It's going to sever itself.
Mhm.
If they used to you being happy, being helpful, being this, and I'm not saying by no means you have to be perfect,
Yeah.
but if you recognize certain things in your children, make sure that you're not portraying to them. You're not comparing yourself to your siblings. You're not
Right.
comparing yourself to other marriages. Are they getting
Right.
the cues? Where are they getting the cue from that this is okay? And I know certain things are just innate in children. It
Right.
just works itself out. But we also have. Do you see mommy doing that? Do you see daddy doing that? Or how can we make this better? Because in actuality, this is the point where we should celebrate somebody else. So we should,
Yeah.
seek times where we can infuse some love. When your aunt sends you some money or some candy or whatever, she's thinking specifically about you. So this is a good thing. This is something to
Mhm.
celebrate. It is how we spin the narrative.
Absolutely.
We give it to them.
Like more is caught than taught, right? So
Yes.
we have to set the example. And one thing that I would say about children and when I became a parent is that the relationship legacy that we leave starts before we leave this earth. And so how they experience us as adults in the house really has a lot. I mean, we as adults, we can talk about our experiences as children, and I'm sure those of you listening can do the same
Yes.
thing. That means that it started in the household. That means that it's starting with you. This isn't a legacy you leave after you're gone. They're compiling it now. And so the shifts and perspective shifts that you can make, and the shifts in your actions that you can make now when it comes to your parenting, taking what Marsha is saying and really working to apply that. And I'm going to be working in the Saucy Marriage Playbook to help you do that and to give whatever everything that Marsha is saying more context for you. So make sure that you've downloaded that, printed it out, and you're using it so that you can really apply what it is that she's saying, because she's just saying amazing stuff. And I know you guys want to stay connected with her so you can keep feeling all of the things and getting all of the things. So please let folks know how they can stay in touch with you, how they can connect with you.
Oh, sure. So I am C Conversations on Instagram, C Conversations, and on Facebook, C Conversations as well. And my website is cconversations.com.
Bam.
It's in the middle of being, we're changing some things on there, but that is the website, and that is where you can find me on Instagram, C Conversations. You
Yes.
can also find me at IamMarshaMcClendon.com.
Okay, awesome. Yes, all of these things and all these links will be there for you, the live links. I'm highly encouraging you to make sure that you follow her. She does, videos, she does posts and things that are really impactful, that are really encouraging, that are really going to speak to the shift that you want to have a more positive and more connected relationship with your children. And so make sure that you click those links and stay in contact with Marsha. Marsha, I'm so glad and so blessed and happy
You.
for you to come this weekend and to share your wisdom
Thank
and
you.
your experience.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate you. You are an awesome person. I love the
Thank
saucy
you.
marriage. So continue what you're doing. We all need to be knocked over the head on our marriages.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, 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 yes. So good job. And I appreciate your audience as well.
Yes, thank you. Love you all. I'm going to be seeing you on the next segment, and we're going to just say bye for now. Really see you later.
Bye.